Good morning, everybody. See people filtering in. We'll give you just a second before we get started. All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Central Carolina Area Agency on Aging May webinar. Today, our topic is going to be evidence-based health programming and how it can flip the script on aging. And then on our next slide, we're going to go over a couple Zoom features if you haven't been with us before. So whenever we're in webinar mode, you guys are automatically muted. You'll be able to see the hosts and the speakers, but not other participants. If you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. I know Linda and Amanda are going to be answering questions at the end. And then we are recording today's presentation. We post that on YouTube. We also post that on our website if you ever want to go back and rewatch. And you will get a certificate of attendance in your email within 1 week of this presentation, as well as probably the PowerPoint presentation that's shared today and the recording. All right, so next, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over here in a second, but our speakers today are Linda Minges from Family and Consumer. She's a Family and Consumer Science agent with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension in Gaston County. And then Amanda Dawson, one of our very own here at Central Carolina Area Agency on Aging. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them to get started.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin, so much. And hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Like Caitlin had mentioned, my name is Amanda Dawson, and I am excited to be co-presenting with my longtime work friend, Linda Minges, who, like Caitlin mentioned, is a family and consumer science agent with North Carolina Cooperative Extension at Gaston County. And she is also a seasoned evidence-based program leader whose passion for these programs really goes above and beyond. And today, the webinar is really focused on following the Older Americans Month theme, which is Flip the Script on Aging for this year. And Flip the Script on Aging does focus on transforming how society perceives, talks about, and approaches aging. And it also encourages individuals and communities to challenge stereotypes and dispel misconceptions. So I can safely say that Linda and I are especially excited to be presenting on this topic. All right, and so today this presentation will actually be divided into two parts. And so this first part, we will be discussing what is evidence-based health programming. We're going to define what that term means, the evidence-based. We're going to apply how an evidence-based program comes into existence. Also provide an overview of what are the different types of evidence-based programs, their origins and model setup. And then lastly, providing a brief overview of the proven health outcomes of participants who take evidence-based programs. All right, so overall, evidence-based programs do offer proven ways to promote health and prevent disease among older adults. They are based on research and they provide documented health benefits, which we will explain a little bit later. This is an image of a cycle on how an evidence-based program comes into existence, further emphasizing the dedication it does take to create programs proven to be effective. So for our presentation, I will briefly focus on about just half of the cycle, but do note that there are other parts that are just as important. The creation of an evidence-based program stems from conducting initial research, whether it's collecting data from the community or researching a specific issue. And so next, the researcher develops and prioritizes program options. So how is the program going to be organized and implemented? And after they determine the direction they would like to create the program, they conduct like this action planning and implement the program. Afterwards, they evaluate the program by making adjustments based on the data received from participants. So the program can continue to be built upon, continue as it is. They can make some adjustments or discontinue if it's proven not effective at all. The cycle then continues based on data from the community and any profound updates that have been made in other research areas based on specific topic of that particular evidence-based program. All right, and here is a list of different evidence-based health programs offered within the Central Carolina Area Agency on Aging region and among other areas of North Carolina. These programs are largely supported by Older Americans Act funding, which makes the training and implementation more cost-effective to disseminate in the community. They all adopt a similar process of becoming evidence-based, and they actually utilize a lay leader model to implement the workshops in the community. And so this lay leader model consists of lead program trainers teaching others to become master trainers in their community, and then master trainers then recruit and train local leaders or coaches to implement the evidence-based program by utilizing crafted and well-researched scripted materials. So it is easy for anyone to lead these workshops in the community. And like I said, with that being said, again, here is a list of different evidence-based health programs. The first column shows what we offer here in our region, one of which is A Matter of Balance, and that is a falls prevention program. And this program was actually developed by the Roybal Center for Enhancement of Late Life Function at Boston University. It then was adopted by Maine Health to actually convert the program into the lay leader model and continue the falls prevention initiative. Other workshops that we offer are like Living Healthy Suite. So one of them is Living Healthy with Chronic Conditions. And this workshop was actually originally developed by Stanford University Patient Education Research Center as a collaborative research project between them and the Northern California Kaiser Permanent Medical Care Program. And the original research project actually lasted 5 years, where the Living Healthy with Chronic Conditions program was evaluated in a randomized study involving more than 1,000 subjects. And the study found that people who took the program compared to those who did not improved healthful behaviors, health status, and decreased their days in the hospital. So those are just two examples of how much research, thought, and effort go into creating these programs. And then just to finish out the slide, we do also offer the Living Healthy with Diabetes, Living Healthy with Chronic Pain, Building Better Caregivers, and other programs that are offered throughout the state of North Carolina that tend to be very popular is Tai Chi for Arthritis, Walk with Ease, Enhanced Fitness, and Powerful Tools for Caregivers. And I have here for us one, if you're interested in looking at more programs and what might be offered throughout at least the state of North Carolina, you can utilize Healthy Aging North Carolina, which is a statewide resource center for evidence-based health programs. And when in doubt, you can also always check out your local area agency on aging for workshop offerings. All right, and like I mentioned, with these evidence-based health programs, they do and have indicated time and time again proven health outcomes. So this slide indicates some of those proven health outcomes outlined at least by Maine Health and Stanford University for A Matter of Balance and Living Healthy with Chronic Conditions. And like I said, these have been consistently gathered when the reviewing of data has been completed from participants. So participants, especially for A Matter of Balance, are more comfortable talking about hair falling. They feel comfortable increasing activity. They plan to continue exercising and would recommend A Matter of Balance to other people, which is amazing. And then also for living healthy with chronic conditions, it's been proven that the workshops and the programs help older adults better manage their chronic conditions. They improve their quality of life and lower healthcare costs. So it's shown that about There has been about $714 per person savings in emergency room visits and hospital utilizations, which, when you look at the whole, that's quite a large number. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and shift into taking these foundations and how these programs flip the script on aging. So the first way that evidence-based health programs flips the script on aging is by the impact of good health. It seems like society often views aging adults as simply accepting the fact that their bodies are becoming frail, sickly, and just shutting down. But in reality, many want to stay active. In fact, people with more positive self-perceptions of aging live 7.5 years longer than those with less positive perceptions. So health promotion disease prevention programming emphasizes lifestyle changes that not only benefit the person, but have positive impacts on other social types. With that being said, each workshop teaches a set of techniques that can help reduce a specific health challenge, such as the fear of falling and managing other chronic conditions. These techniques include skills like the cognitive restructuring, which is a more technical term that means to shift one's mindset from being afraid of making changes for whatever reason to thinking through personal obstacles and fears and to overcome barriers to pursue better health. Other techniques also include action planning, healthy eating, exercise, decreasing loneliness and social isolation, and being an advocate for other or health among medical professionals and others.
Amanda, can I
Yeah,
chime in here?
sure.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Linda Minges, and I just wanted to share with you a couple of the comments that I have as a registered dietitian and a family and consumer science agent with North Carolina Cooperative Extension, because many of these things, they're just kind of popping through. Amanda and I were chatting in preparation for today's presentation, and I just wanted to share a couple of things about this slide because it's so impactful. One of the things we see in the realm of individuals managing diabetes and their family members is often that people feel they have no sense of control. One of the common things that I have seen over the more than 20 years of working with folks with diabetes is they really don't have a strong understanding and feel empowered to know what to do or that they have any control over their diabetes levels. And it is amazing as we go through these programs to see those thoughts begin to shift. And so the cognitive restructuring, especially for myself, when I see this in the matter of balance and our Living Healthy with Diabetes program, is phenomenal. Action planning, and I'll share with you some of the folks that have shared feedback. That has been a game changer for people. And this is one of the things that is so tremendous with these series of programs is we focus on behavior. And the idea with action planning is that individuals start to make action plans of what they're going to accomplish in a week. We share it as a group, and then we come back and report. And guess what? If you tell a whole group of people that you're going to do something, you feel very obligated to do it. And I've had folks to come back and say, that has changed my whole health and wellness. I now make weekly goals and I write it down and I do it. And we, as health providers and community professionals, we may take for granted that people understand how to do and plan action steps for their health when really they don't know how to do that. The other piece that I laugh about, but and I may be jumping ahead, but I have to share this now while it's on my mind, is that the emotional support. I had someone from one of our classes to come back and say, you and the other instructor saved my marriage. I was sharing this with Amanda and it was quite funny at the time. And I'm like, I thought she was kidding. She said, no, I'm serious because we learned how to communicate with one another. So it's really interesting when you start to hear these pieces. The other thing that I wanted to mention is to not overlook the cost saving benefits. If you work for county, state, government, showing those financial outcomes and savings are huge. Very few other programs can show that, especially with the utilization and cost from emergency room visits. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And those are all definitely very valid points about these programs, and why it's such a cycle for the individual themselves becoming healthier and how it impacts others. So um, it has been proven, like Linda was saying, that when people who do more tend to feel better. And with that, the participants who embrace healthier lifestyles and become advocates for their health tend to want to do more with their family and or friends, or save their marriage. That's great. Um, Causing other things like loneliness and social isolation to decrease. And then that in itself gives back to the community by bolstering things like social connectedness, supporting an age-friendly built environment, or at least the need for it, and reinforcing the need for valuable programs, services, and active living for all. So not just older adults, but for all. And like the slide indicates, each of these components impact the other in an ongoing cycle that should really shift society's view or way of thinking and consider how our future should look for all. All right. And another way evidence-based programs flips the script on aging is through locations where workshops are offered. They don't have to be held solely at senior centers or senior living communities. And locations should foster the gathering of a dynamic group of participants while also being practical to the community's needs. And I'm gonna let Linda definitely chat more about this.
Yeah, so one of the things, the top picture is a picture of the Cherryville branch library in Gaston County. So I've been with Extension for about 23 years, and it's very interesting. And this can apply to all of our communities. There are often outlying communities that may be isolated from locations that you would traditionally do programs, perhaps a hospital or senior center. And sometimes it's really hard to figure out what is the best place to meet and to connect with these adults. So in Cherryville, during the time when, and again, this has probably been more than 10 or 15 years ago, Cherryville does not have a senior center. It did not have a health department. Even some of the larger churches were just, that was not, we weren't able to get the interest for programming. So eventually I met with the library and I learned that that location, that community, they were the connector for the residents of that community. They served older adults, children, everyone. It was a safe space. It was also parking was easy and accessible. I use that in comparison to some of the other community sites, and actually, even where my extension office is, we have very limited handicap parking, and even trying to get from the parking to a classroom that is more of a auditorium style room was not very conducive. People were completely fatigued, and I thought this is not a good situation. Libraries are an excellent source. We have found that to be a great space. They often have community rooms. It's smaller. It's a little bit more intimate, which is really a key factor that I find to make everyone feel comfortable. And libraries are looking for programming. So this is a great way of serving your community. And then in Cramerton, North Carolina, which was another area near Belmont in Gaston County that we were trying to reach into doing programming, and learned that we needed to go more into that community. Of course, my first thought was a church. There was a community center, a rec center, but we ended up working with the city of Cramerton at the Confluence Center, which is kind of an arts, music, rec facility, and it was beautiful inside. And we had the whole use of the facility, and it was very close to the river, and folks could go and walk. and parking was easy, and it was just very artsy, and it created a really nice space. Amanda came out to one of those programs, and we always enjoyed just, they had murals on the wall. It was a really nice space. The bottom picture is not a senior center, but in Gaston County Extension has one of our volunteer locations, and we often do programs here as well, because again, parking and room size were important. So, again, thinking about some of these spots, and really just you start having to talk to your community and find out. We've also been very successful going to some of the adult senior apartments, because many, what we've learned, for example, in Belmont, and I think Amanda, you mentioned that Matter Balance was done in Belmont at the senior apartments there. One of the challenges that community had is the lack of public transportation. So we actually took that program on site. So sometimes it takes a little while to learn those communities, but you do have to be open to think outside of the box.
Yeah, and what better way to really connect with others and broaden your network when being able to go out in the community instead of staying in maybe your own location. So, and then we also have the YMCA. They're very active with their health and wellness programs, but um, being able to get nestled into the YMCA because they do have older adults who are going and taking classes is also a good way to offer workshops.
And Amanda, I forgot to even mention working with cooperative extension. I take that one for granted. So one of the things I would do want to mention with that, cooperative extension, we here in North Carolina are affiliated with NC State and A&T University. We have county centers in every county and the Cherokee Reservation. So that is a great partner and location. Sometimes they may not have the office space, but connecting with them to bring these programs is excellent. They often are associated with volunteers that are also looking to partner and collaborate with groups that are working around health and wellness. So if you have not made that connection with your local extension office, please do. We were so excited when Amanda came and presented to one of our district, actually, I forget the number of counties, that I think 15 or 19 that were in our district, our affiliates, with our Extension and Community Association volunteers, and also our Family and Consumer Science agents. And it was really interesting to me because I just assumed all of our agents knew about Centralina and the great work that was being done. And it was very interesting because we have new agents and, staff turnover. There have been a lot of retirements. Many of them thought that you had to have certain credentials in order to be a trainer, which is not correct. And, or they had not heard of the programming. So, those are some great ways to partner as well.
Yes, yes, it is. All right, and I don't know how many people are on, but Linda and I thought it would be nice to be a little interactive and wanted to see if anybody in the audience are would answer what are other locations that these workshops can be delivered. Thinking about your community, where you are, what are unique places that you may not have thought of before, but now you're thinking, maybe I could reach out to them, or you've actually done workshops. All right. We have somebody who said the health department. Um, some some are hosted in just public parks in Atlanta. That's really neat. Anybody else? Schools have been cooperative in the past. Okay. Adult day centers. Upstate South Carolina AAA. Senior center. Yeah, these are great. Sometimes universities. Linda, I think we're getting ideas.
Absolutely. This is great.
All right. Well, thank you, senior centers and churches. Yeah, I love that. All right. Community colleges. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on. But if you all feel inclined to continue sharing locations, just drop them in the chat. All right. So now we're going to talk about a snapshot of participants. And I put perceived. So society may have an ageist lens on when thinking about individuals who participate in these programs. And while each workshop does target aging adults with like specific health need, they are not the only ones who actually participate. And there are many reasons why people take these workshops, which we will look at shortly. Um, and again, I would like to emphasize that participants who engage in these workshops are not the stereotypical aging individuals often perceived. Not all are frail, sickly, and unable to be active. And really, in reality, society's mindset needs to shift to a broader understanding of why these programs are important to so many.
And this picture was taken from our group in Cramerton, and you can see the beautiful mural that was in the back. So, one of the reasons why we love teaching these programs is because of the energy from the participants. And I feel like if you see this picture, you can pick up on that energy. We have professionals that are serving other seniors, and they want to learn more and be able to share additional resources. We have, retired professionals, that are trying to care for themselves, but they're involved in so many things as well. Young people, old people, we have, and it's very interesting because I remember we had in one of our classes a mom and her daughter who was probably in her late 40s, and she came to our program because she was dealing with a chronic debilitating disease. And so, one of the things we have to remember, and Pam, one of our facilitators that we'll talk more about lay leaders, the one that is in the middle, she always comments that because she always has a smile on her face. And she said, people, because she's out doing things, and people will say, well, I didn't know that you had so many illnesses going on. And we do label folks based on just a visual and in terms of that. So we have to kind of rethink that. And, one of the things that I always try to remind some of my older adults, and depending on, mind from, I hear some people saying, I've worked and I've done things all my life. I don't need to learn anything new. Well, we need to shift that as well, because I tell folks you may not need or may have health issues now, but planning and getting these resources and tools in your toolbox for later and even caregiving can be extremely helpful. So yeah, this group right here, they were rocking it. And in fact, there were two sisters, and if you're looking at this picture, the front far left, and I cannot remember her name right now, but she comes to many of our programs. And that's another piece, is many times these evidence-based programs, one workshop is a gateway into so many of the additional workshops, and also all the services that you and your partner organization are bringing. So for example, with extension, many times folks will come in to one of our classes that we held like at the Lucille Tatum Center, and then they're like, oh, you've got a volunteer group here, well, let me learn more. You do canning classes here, oh my goodness, let me learn more. But what is so exciting, the person that I mentioned to you, the action plan, she said that is what stuck with her. She became active, and she is retired and active, engaged, and she is physically active doing something every day. And so she mentioned that. So I just think these pictures really they capture a great story of how aging is changing.
Yeah, and I would sort of add on to that. That sister, lady at the far left of the picture in the front row, she actually took my Matter of Balance workshop about a year and a half before taking the Living Healthy with Chronic Conditions one. So when I went to go sub in a session and I saw her, I was like, hey, I remember you. And she said, I remember you. I still do the exercises for Matter of Balance. Anyways, it's always nice to hear that. Okay. So like Linda had been mentioning, in reality, participants really gather together to participate for various reasons, whether it's for preventative measures, purely just educational. They want to learn more about the topic, to become better managers of their health. And then, of course, caregiving for a loved one and have a desire to provide the best and safest care tailored for their loved one. And then backgrounds and ability levels are diverse. And with that, I'm going to let Linda talk about the picture.
Yeah, so this was again from the Confluence Center in Cramerton. And, one of the things that I'll also mention is, I think since COVID, we're seeing more folks that are coming out. They initially may not even know exactly why they're there. They don't have a real strong interest in their health. They're just trying to get out of the house. I mean, they've shared this with me. And then once, and this group was especially like that, several members, and then when they came, the conversation, they're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Everyone in the community, she was saying, I live alone. I've always taken care of my family and being there for them. And, this is a time for me. And so it's really interesting because the relationships, these programs provide usually like a 15-minute break, and the conversations and the connections that they make and helping to problem solve among themselves, the level of empowerment. And then again, they learn about other things, and making these small steps to get dressed, to get out of the house, to be social really helps them to build on those skills and do other things. Sometimes we have folks who, when it mentions here, backgrounds and ability level are very diverse. And that is really the case. But people, they become very respectful of that, and then they learn. We've had, high level, it really has been kind of interesting over the years. We've had high level military professionals that were in command of many, many people, and they come to some of these health programs and they show a very vulnerable side because now they're having falling issues, and sharing and having those conversations. Sometimes we have folks that perhaps have some hearing issues, and so we're making sure that they're close by and that they can hear, and we kind of bring those conversations together. Sometimes there's visual issues, and so we're, having those conversations as well. But you really do learn and you develop a relationship. And I've laughed because also when you have family members, you almost feel like you're a non-professional counselor because of the dynamics and things that are shared. So there's a lot of relationship building. But I love this picture because these are folks that we're talking about traveling and all the things they want to do. And and to me, this may not be, when people think about chronic disease workshops, this group here may not be what they think of.
Thank you, Linda. All right, and now we're gonna move on into discussing the leaders within at least our region, but it's probably very similar to others in our state and outside our state. But they truly are the superstars implementing these workshops. I want to highlight that leaders don't necessarily, and Linda mentioned this too, they don't necessarily come from the aging network or have that aging background or healthcare background to implement these workshops, and that many of our leaders come from various backgrounds, which that itself flips the script on aging. So it demonstrates that the community can come together to promote healthy living for our neighbors. And we really are better together. So some of the leader backgrounds in our region includes social workers, librarians, nurses, cooperative extension, public health, professors or like education, parks and rec, senior center staff, big volunteer, because without the lay leaders volunteering, going above and beyond what they have to do, these programs wouldn't be as successful as they are. And then Linda wanted me to put the you in there because that really encompasses, what you do. And then the note, and Linda, if you want to talk a little bit more, but really having leaders that are passionate to educate about chronic health conditions and also have the lived experience.
Yeah, so one of the things it's really kind of interesting because I work with a lot of in the realm of extension, we probably have more than around 200 to 500 volunteers on the average. And one of the things that I have learned, and I know there was a question about how do you reach folks, sometimes you have to specifically point on ask people and we hear this about churches and other civic groups. As you're doing programs, you may find that there are individuals that really stand out that you're thinking, gosh, their energy, their passion, and it's okay to ask. Sometimes they will say no. Sometimes, they have other commitments and that's not a priority, but it's okay to ask. One of our, one of the things that I like to mention, and some of the pictures you'll see, Pam Bryson, one of our leaders, and she and I worked together through extension before she retired. But I share this openly. She shares this with her group. She has multiple chronic conditions, including diabetes, and takes numerous medications. And I always ask for her to teach with me when we do Living Healthy with Diabetes because she knows about monitoring blood sugar. She wears a continuous tracking device. She has been dealing with this for more than 20 years. And she talks about dealing with highs and lows and how it's impacted her. And those types of individuals who are living the chronic conditions and dealing with it, people connect because I can talk to you all day long about my plate and exchanges and carbs, but I don't wear a monitor. I don't have diabetes. And so this is where it's really great to have those people and to encourage them. She was she was a little not as confident at first, but it's great now. And one of the things we talk about, because she has mentioned to me numerous times, going out in the community, she'll say, you wouldn't believe the number of times people will come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I've taught you were my instructor for my fall prevention workshop or my diabetes class. And I learned so much and I'm still doing X, Y, or Z. And that is the real world. We all learn and connect with people that are similar to us. So don't underestimate that value. The trainings, and I can't say enough about this because, again, I've been with Extension. I am trained on a whole lot of curriculums over my lifetime. I laugh and said, if I had a nickel for every notebook curriculum I had or tote bag, man, I could retire right now, but that's another conversation. So, but the trainings are so interactive and they're so much supported and it's fun. And it's really just a pleasure to even go through the trainings. How many trainings can you say that? That's the experience. And the materials are excellent. They are easy to jump in and to do because it's just, it's all scripted. So, it really, folks who have never been a leader before, they may be a little hesitant and you may have to guide them. But yeah, start looking. That's what I do now. It's been a while, ever since COVID, we've really struggled. And many times I've found that a lot of folks that would be great volunteers are already doing so much. But keep those relationships because it may not be that they have time for it now, but it may be when they later. Or you may have, coworkers or folks that are saying, I'm going to retire in a couple of years and this is something I'm interested in. So kind of, keep that on the back burner and thinking about that.
So true. Emphasis on that. All right. So we got another question here. How many viewers currently serve as workshop leaders who were actually previous participants? And you can just say me or whoever. And if not, then it's definitely food for thought to continue with how you recruit, or if you are watching this and you were hesitant about becoming a leader, um, to think about pursuing this opportunity. Yeah. All right. All right, and then of course, Linda has already talked a lot about this, but I'm going to do my plug in for the benefits of becoming leader. She's already talked about so much, but you do have your professional development, continued education. If you're again not coming from this area, you're learning something new. Of course, giving back to the community, networking opportunities. You don't do these workshops alone. You're co-lead. That's how the workshops are developed, so you have a partner. And then of course making a difference in the lives of aging adults experiencing fear with falling, chronic health conditions, caregiver fatigue, and more. And Linda, do you want to talk about anything with this picture? There's Pam
Well,
again. We'll hear from Pam in a little bit too.
Yeah, so I just like to, point out because, Pam and I've had these conversations and other instructors teaching these programs as a leader. Really, you may have heard the saying, the best way to learn something is to teach it. And that's really the case with being a leader. It gives you an opportunity to focus in on your own health and to put that into place. And also the value of what we learn from one another. And I really feel like since COVID, what has really come up to the top of the surface as benefits of being a leader are those relationships with other people. I'm seeing more and more folks that are reaching out saying, I want to get involved. I need to meet people. I'm more isolated because there's more and more awareness about social isolation and how we can prevent it. And, so the benefits of that, Pam has mentioned that as well. She says, she always teaching matter balance, like it really encourages you to do the exercises. And so it's a great way to reinforce your own positive health for yourself. And the other thing that I was just going to mention is that, as you're becoming leaders, you have friends and family. I think half the folks in this picture right here were either neighbors of Pam or people that she knew. And I laugh about that because, some communities, we really are that well connected, whether it's a church. And so think about all of those places that you go and you're talking to people, in terms of that. And sometimes just the whole impact of being socially connected. The other thing I have to say, part of the benefits of being a leader are the continuing ed, but Central Carolina also hosts a couple of activities where we all come together. And that has always been one of my favorite things of being able to connect with other colleagues and volunteers across the spectrum of aging, whether it's working with other community, like county offices, like their senior centers, learning what kind of programming they're doing, even working to help them do programs, and to learn about, programs. So for example, we had one of our SHIP coordinators from the other county to come to Gaston County, and I connected with her at our annual meeting that Central Carolina held. So there's a lot of great opportunities for connection. And, that's one of the things that one of the valuable lessons learned for me personally is coming from COVID was how important those social connections are. Believe it or not, I'm pretty introverted, but coming out of COVID really made me much more grateful for those relationships. And now I'm trying to be more intentional in terms of managing those.
All right, and then next we just have a quick clip of some of our volunteers in our region, talking about where they are, what they lead, and what their favorite thing about being a leader is. And I had to like sort of clip it from the longer video, so we'll go ahead and watch it and move on. And if the sound doesn't work, I'll stop it. But our full video is actually posted on our Facebook page as well as LinkedIn.
Willie Mae Abel. I am from Rowan County. I am certified in healthy living or the chronic disease self-management program. I volunteer because I want to help older adults live a good quality of life. And my favorite thing about being a leader is when attendees come back to tell me the results they see in themselves after utilizing the principles of healthy living.
Hey everybody, I'm Mary Blythe and I'm in Union County. I teach living healthy with chronic conditions and chronic pain, living healthy with diabetes. And I love being a leader to make relationships and connect with the participants.
Hi, I'm Aileen Smith. I am in Mecklenburg County. I am a trained leader for living healthy with chronic conditions, living healthy with diabetes, living healthy with chronic pain, a matter of balance, and building better caregivers. And what I love about volunteering, I enjoy sharing very useful and important information with the community as a whole.
Hi, my name is Sheila Wright, and I am in Mecklenburg County. I teach living healthy with chronic pain and living healthy with chronic disease and also living healthy with diabetes. Why do I love doing these classes? It's because when I see the people finally get that aha moment, the light bulb goes off and they have walked away to learn something to be better stewards over their bodies.
My name is Pam Bryson. I'm from Gaston County, and I'm certified in Matter Balance, living healthy with diabetes, living healthy with chronic disease. My favorite thing about being a leader is helping the community, and then when I see people in stores and stuff, they come up and give me a report of how much it's helped them.
All right, like I said, that was a quick clip. It's just a few of our leaders who do awesome work in our region, and you met Pam. Okay.
Willie Mae Abel.
Oh, we don't want that. Okay. All right. So, last but not least, we would like to talk about the impact of data and how the collection of it can aid in flipping the script on aging. So remember back in the beginning, what was reviewed of in the presentation in that cycle, and how program remains evidence-based through the data collection and review of its effectiveness. Yeah, each evidence-based program often has some way of collecting data. And so for the ones that we work with in our region, we have the ability to collect demographics, history of falls, chronic health conditions, loneliness and social isolation rates, caregiving status, and general overall health reporting. And so this wealth of information is collected from participants at the beginning and the end of each workshop to determine the program's overall health impact on an individual, which often does indicate a positive impact, which is why it's evidence-based. So the data collection can provide insight on what society can focus additional efforts on, and then in turn flip the script on aging by focusing on the possibilities that can better the future for aging adults who are still valuable in the community as well as other generations. So first, it can provide insight on the need for community education about a certain health condition. So if many workshop participants are actually experiencing like hypertension, which is what I see a lot of participants experiencing in our region, then the dissemination of hypertension information needs to happen. Very simple solution. Second, innovative health interventions can be created. So while each evidence-based program typically focuses on a specific health problem with the data collected and reviewed, new health innovations can be created to combat a common trending health condition. And then lastly, the data collected can help establish maybe like some preventative measures for future generations and aid in slowing or maybe eliminating impending health conditions, but definitely striving for a healthier society. And then, of course, these will in turn help increase the ability for people to age in place safely and maintain a sense of autonomy as well as dignity in their daily living. Linda, do you have anything to add to that?
No, the only thing I was going to share is that how helpful this data is. We're actually, I think I had mentioned when you and I were speaking, that we have actually started building some of this data into our county strategic plan. And you know, this is really great stuff, that, for example, extension, we have to do reports and share back to our elected officials and, you know, funders at the state and the federal level. And so that is one of the reasons why it's such a good partnership, is the data is really there. And it's, you know, like we were talking about, like the cost savings of that, I think is huge. And being able to share that, and that increase the ability to age in place, you know, that is a huge one in terms of cost savings. And more organizations, you know, in terms of the political climate and what we're doing, we're having to show the why, and why we're doing certain programs and what impacts we're making. And being able to collect and look at that data, you know, like I can pull up Gaston County, but I can reach out to Centralina and get, you know, the surrounding data. That is very impactful. And with extension, we're in multiple counties. That really is good stuff. So just knowing that you've got that data, if you're talking with, you know, elected officials, county directors, whomever, it's there. And that's what makes these programs so strong.
Exactly. All right. And then this is just a slide of some of the quotes that I collected from participants and what they're saying about the programs. And of course, I quoted them. So we have people who are saying, like, I am now well informed about dealing with my chronic illnesses. I encourage my friends with the information received, and they are more aware of surroundings. Um, Being able to speak with others and being held accountable was very, that wasn't the only one that said that. So that's really great. And then it gave me strategies to deal with chronic pain, and it gave me time to learn from others.
I also, Amanda, have to share in terms of, you know, one of the greatest success stories I feel like I've seen in a while. We offered Matter of Balance, and this has been several years ago. I think it was after COVID, and we did Matter of Balance in Stanley at Common Ground Church. And that was a group, we had several folks that were between 85 and 92 years old. And let me tell you, once we got done with the program, they created, because they had within their church membership, they had a physical therapist, or an occupational therapist, who they started offering exercise classes. And to this day, and this has been at least 2 years since, they have regular weekly exercise classes, as a result of bringing some of these classes on location. So it's really amazing the impacts that these programs are making.
All right. And with that, you know, I'm going to do a plug. If you are in our region or somewhere else, and you're interested in becoming involved, you can, at least in ours, become obviously a certified leader. Linda and I have already said it's pretty easy to do. All the supplies are there for you, scripts and everything, the support. You can also join our ambassador program, which are people who go out in the community and really advocate to these programs, trying to fill people out on, like, maybe they could become leaders, or, you know, creating unique partnerships, becoming a referral partner, a host site, or even a sponsor. Is there any questions or comments? I know we're almost at time. Okay. All right. Well, if there is, feel free to go ahead and put in the chat. We're here a few more minutes, but I do want to quickly just say that, it is Older Americans Month. Here's a slide that I wanted to include with the different resources that you can use. There's a link, but the Older Americans Month resources website does have logos, posters, sample articles that can be edited, social media tools for you to use for the campaign and flipping the script on aging. And then I also have at the end of the slide different resources that we used to create this presentation, and if anybody wants to look into more background information. And that is it. Linda, do you have any last comments?
No, the only thing I was just going to follow back around to the question about scouting people to lead programs. If you do become trained or you're not trained and you're not real, you're new to this whole program, I really encourage you to learn who the leaders are in your county and being able, to connect and reach out to like your Parks and Rec and, your extension office, any senior centers. And again, sometimes you may have to have that one-on-one conversation and find out what, some of those organizations are looking for programming and they have folks that they're willing to send to training, but it may take that actual conversation. So, that was one of the things we did when we first started, because in our county during that time, Extension and then I believe Parks and Rec, they we got trained together, but it was really interesting because Parks and Rec with our senior center, their focus and what they needed to do, they wanted to have locations and programs on site. Whereas with some of my community partners, I was really trying to go out and reach into the community of those locations that did not have transportation. So it really worked out well. And being able to coordinate your classes and letting your county leaders know what's going on. I mention that because it's great if you can work so that you don't overlap a class, so that maybe you can make sure that people that gives more people an opportunity perhaps. But sometimes just doing a little bit of having a conversation, and don't hesitate to reach out to Amanda or myself or others if you need ideas on leaders, if you're struggling with leaders, because we can kind of help you with that or give you some ideas for brainstorming. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Linda. We will share the presentation after we finish up, and our contact information as well. So if there's any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. We would be happy to help you. And with that, thank you all for coming. You all are amazing, and we hope that you have a great rest of the day.